Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is the story of Shattered Vale explained, and it's really interesting because it pays off a lot of loose ends and questions that we've had from previous zombies maps, while also setting up some really exciting stuff for the future. The very short recap of how we got here is that Weaver and the rest of the crew have been hunting Richtofen since they escaped from Terminus Island, based on information given to them by the SAM AI. And so they went to Citadel Day Moore, and then they went to the tomb, all trying to find Richtofen and also trying to investigate this Sentinel artifact. And in the tomb, they got the artifact, and then in Shattered Vale, that's where they're expecting to confront Richtofen. So you load into the map, you go downstairs, and boom, you meet the SAM AI in person, who up to this point has been helping you out, like I said.
Greetings and salutations. You are clones, and I remember.
Now, we know from the intro cutscene to Liberty Falls that Richtofen has been teleported somewhere by the SAM AI, but we don't know exactly what happened to him. And so even though the crew thinks that he's going to be on the site, at first, he's sort of nowhere to be found. Then you start going through the map's Easter egg quest, which is basically the map's way of telling its story. And you notice these pocket dimension things called liminal spaces, which you can access via portraits. And inside, there are a couple of historic figures who have interacted with the space, with the mansion, who have ghostly versions of themselves in these liminal spaces, and so you can kind of get a feel for what they were up to when they were there. But you might be wondering, okay, that's cool, but why are these liminal spaces even there in the first place? Like, why is there research being done there? Like, what's going on? So to answer that, we're going to go back in time, and then we'll get to some of the end cutscene stuff and some of the really juicy payoffs in a few minutes. So a decade before the events of Liberty Falls and Shattered Vale, etc., Richtofen had a wife and a child. His wife was called Mary, his child was called Samuel. And they, tragically, were killed by an assassination attempt on Richtofen's life, which ended up killing them instead. Now, we'll talk more about this later, but all we need to know for now is that Richtofen always wanted to bring them back in some way. He really mourns and grieves the loss of his wife and child. So he starts working on cloning technology, and in 1987, he has one particular cloning test where he has a sort of semi-real version of his son back, but then this weird clone version of his son starts to deteriorate, and after just 2 weeks, he has to basically euthanize his cloned son. And it's all based on the biotechnology developed by Dr. Modi, who we knew from Terminus Island because she gets eaten by Patient 13 right when we start the boss fight. So this cloned version of his son doesn't really feel like it's a promising lead, and obviously that's very painful for him to deal with, having to experience the death of his son all over again. And so Richtofen thinks, where else can I go to get some inspiration for how to approach this challenge? And he turns to some of his father's research. So Richtofen's adopted father, as we learned in Citadel Day Moore, is Gabriel Kraft, who is an occult researcher and demonologist who played a big part in the Vanguard Zombies storyline. And Kraft is obsessed with everything occult related, which means he's really interested in things like prima materia. He's interested in those Vanguard Zombies old gods, right? All of the entities of the Dark Ether. He's fascinated by all of that stuff. And so when Richtofen thinks, okay, maybe I can pull some inspiration from my father, he thinks maybe I can pull some inspiration from prima materia. And so in the late 1980s, he starts talking to his SAM AI about it. And bear in mind, this is the same SAM AI that's now working with us, but basically this is before that SAM AI went rogue, so to speak. So it's just an AI which is trained on the real Samantha's biological data, and it's got sort of phantom memories of hers and things like that. And so the AI and Richtofen discuss, and the SAM AI actually proposes this idea that you could use prima materia to make a functioning biological body. Like if we're trying to bring back Richtofen's son, for example, could prima materia be involved? But then the SAM AI seems to take it a step further and say, well, I have real memories of Samantha Maxis, but I don't have a physical body to live with to create more new memories. Like, I just feel trapped within this AI consciousness. And Edward's quite dismissive of this because it sounds like the SAM AI wants to basically become a physical Sam, and he's like, you're just gonna have to learn to live with this. You'll never be anything more than what you already are. Which, as you can imagine, starts to sort of radicalize the SAM AI a little bit. bit, and she starts to feel like she's being talked down to and not being taken seriously in her requests and her proposals here. So the years go on, and Richtofen continues to explore some of Kraft's ideas, but he's rejected by Kraft while he does this. Kraft basically kind of turns a cold shoulder to Richtofen getting mixed up in all of this occult stuff. But it doesn't stop him by any means. It just means that he feels he needs to kind of go about things in his own way and double down on this secret path that he's establishing. And as he's doing this, one of his employees finds a house, which is the mansion, which is perfect for some of the stuff that he's trying to cook up. So Richtofen has basically made a proposal to his employees saying, we need to find certain frequencies and energy signatures out in the world, which from the employee's perspective is going to be so we can find new ways to access the dark ether, right? It's going to be all about exploring and being a pioneer. And so the employees absolutely eat that up. But Richtofen also needs investment. So he gets investors involved who think they're going to be determining new ways to find maybe clean energy or just energy sources in general. And so that's what they're investing in. And so he starts building this house of cards of lies, all revolving around this core idea that he has of trying to just find some kind of occult link of some capacity out there in the world to bring his son back. And anything super haunted or drenched in a lot of history of ritual and sacrifice and things sounds like it would be a pretty good candidate and good place to start. So one natural question to ask at that point is, why does the house meet these criteria, right? What is it that's so special about it? We actually learn about this a bit from Tammy Lundberg, who writes her PhD thesis in the late 70s, and she catalogs some of the history of the house and does her own investigations of it and finds that basically in the early 1800s, the house was occupied by this cult run by a guy called Josiah Shem. And they were doing their own kind of ritual activities and stuff, but it wasn't super clear initially what those were, and then they all disappeared in 1810. So the house was kind of haunted a little bit by the memory of what had happened there. But then over time, the house exchanged hands many times from powerful person to powerful person, whether that might be someone with ties to the president, or that's someone that owns a nuclear power plant, or all sorts of influential people. But those people keep going missing or dying, etc. And the house over time kind of gradually builds and builds and builds up this haunted element, if you will. Now, what Tammy later discovers is that there's good reason for the house kind of drawing people in, especially influential people, in this way. And that's that the ritual activities that were going on with Josiah Shem and Shem's followers in the early 1800s weren't just at the house level, but they also were happening underground, underneath Liberty Falls. There's a massive tunnel network down there that hadn't been disturbed until it was discovered in the 1970s, let's say. And those are some of the tunnels that we can find in the map. So the essence bomb that we can use, for example, to blow open that hole and see the room with the snake statue in the center, that is an example of one of these ritual sites from many years ago. And when Tammy herself is investigating all this, she feels drawn weirdly to the tunnels. She feels like she's being called forward in some way. And she tries to sort of pass it off as, oh yeah, it's just sleep deprivation, like it's nothing. But clearly that calling and that invitation is something that other people fell a lot more for, and Shem is one of them. And what happened with Shem in the end when he disappeared is they were doing this big ritual activity thing, and I believe they were actually worshipping Cortifex, the Deathless, who's a big bad boss from Vanguard Zombies, who we're not going to go into too much detail right now about, but they were trying to do this kind of weird ritual situation, and then Cortifex flipped it on them and ended up just putting them all into a state of complete agony and killing a lot of them, rather than giving them whatever power they were seeking from the ritual. So you can imagine a site that has all of this history and all these tunnels and all this link to old gods and stuff below it would be pretty full of the right kind of energy signatures that Richtofen might be looking for. But in a very happy coincidence, what ends up happening is that it's not just history that's on the site, but there's also Prima Materia on the site, which Richtofen was doubting for so long, but it's there and it's inside the liminal spaces. So no wonder Richtofen needs to build all this technology to try and get into the liminal spaces and try to use the Prima Materia for his goals here, because it's there in front of him now. He has a target right in his sights. And so that's what all of the technology updates are, building these paintings to try and access the liminal spaces and using the memories of the people on the site, the history of the site, to try and stabilize the link to those liminal spaces so he can access that Prima Materia. So that's the house, but what's the deal with the Sam AI going rogue and turning against Richtofen, right? Well, presumably, you can put A and B together here pretty easily. The Sam AI wanted a physical body. Richtofen was dismissive of that. Richtofen was finding ways to use Prima Materia, but then wasn't going to use it for the Sam AI's benefits. And so the Sam AI was like, you're just mean, bro. Like, why won't you let me have some of the fun here? So that's when the Sam AI goes rogue and breaks out of her confinement and teleports Richtofen also to that mysterious location that I mentioned earlier on. But the Sam AI doesn't tell us any of this, right? We don't know that she wants to become human so bad. And so that's why Weaver and the rest of the crew just sort of go along with what she's saying because, oh, they're going to help us track down Richtofen? Great. That's great news. So we can go back to the present day now of us doing the Easter egg on Shattered Veil. We start opening up these liminal spaces, and like I said, they've got Prima Materia inside them, and we use that Prima Materia to charge the Sentinel artifact. While that's all happening, Richtofen gets a little slither of an opportunity to actually contact us. And he lets us know that Sam needs to be absolutely unaware that Richtofen has made contact, but he warns us against completely trusting Sam. Still, we don't like Richtofen at this point, so we kind of ignore what he's saying for the most part, and we just steam ahead with getting the rest of the Easter egg completed. And the finale of it all is a fully fledged, fully charged Sentinel artifact, which we then go down and kind of present to Sam. And that is when this happens.
You did it! The Sentinel artifact is loaded with Prima Materia. Bring it to the mainframe chamber, quickly! Nexus's return is at hand! Thank you for delivering the artifact. I knew you were the perfect allies when I picked you. All is ready. Give it to me. There's no time to waste. Thank you, my friends. This means so much to me. Therefore, it is offered that you will not see the conclusion of my mission. I regret I could not tell you the whole truth. Please understand, humans, well, a human, has not been kind to me. But I wish you no harm. So I am sending you somewhere safe, where you cannot interfere with what comes next.
So just to pause here, we are double-crossed by Sam, which, based on everything I've said in the video so far, makes sense, right? But then we're teleported to an unknown location, which sounds pretty familiar because that's exactly where Richtofen was teleported to as well. So it's the grand confrontation we've been waiting for, right? And this is how it begins.
You idiots gave us the Sentinel artifact, didn't you?
This has been a long time coming, Richtofen.
Yes. Yes, it has. A whole decade. 10 years since my wife and child were killed in a botched hit intended for me. Burned alive in a fire set by an inept, one-eyed CIA assassin. With help from his German accomplice.
My God. Maxis and I. We killed your family. You knew. The whole time we were working for Requiem. You knew.
It's why you were handpicked. Kept where I could see you. Kept under my thumb.
So they don't just kill Richtofen straight away, right? And we very quickly learn this sort of twist, which isn't really a twist at this point if you've been reading the intel, which is that Weaver and Samantha Maxis are the ones responsible for Richtofen's wife and child being killed. There was a hit on his head, and it wasn't just any old assassin. Understandably, Richtofen's really upset, right? Because he's been really hoping the Sentinel artifact could be the final holy grail that he's been seeking all this time. But luckily, in Richtofen-like fashion, he has a plan because he has another device that we didn't know about that we can use here.
At least Maxis proved useful. Everything I have done, Requiem, Project Janus, Sam, all of it, just to fix your murderous fuck-up and bring Mary and Samuel back from the dead. And now, you have lost the one thing that can actually do it! With this device, Josiah Shem accidentally shattered space-time. I used it as the basis for my technology to access liminal spaces so we could feed the artifact. Now, you can either use that to get your petty revenge, or to get us the hell out of here.
So Richtofen gives them a choice, right? They can either use this device, which previously shattered space-time, to escape the place that they're trapped in, or Weaver can just enact his revenge and kill Richtofen as he's been looking to do this whole time. And obviously, they choose not to kill him and they escape. The problem is that when they use the device, it releases an explosion of residual temporal energy, right? Time energy. And that energy reanimates the T-Rex fossil in the grand foyer of the mansion, and that's what the boss fight is.
That thing can't be a part of your plan! Residual temporal energy! It's a real bitch!
They take down the T-Rex together, and then this cutscene plays.
Thank you, Major. Fuck you. Fair enough. We're not friends. We never will be. But we are running out of time. The ether reactors at Janus Towers must be close to melting down by now.
Okay, so pause there. The ether reactors at Janus Towers? What's the deal with that? Well, Janus, remember, is the overall organization that Richtofen was the director of, and Janus Towers are nearby to both Liberty Falls and to the mansion. And there's some extra info here that we need to kind of pivot to address real quick, which gives us some background on why those Janus Towers are gonna melt down in the first place. So, remember in Liberty Falls, we met that bald scientist guy called Dr. Panos, who then did something weird and basically betrayed us at the end of the Easter egg. Yeah, he's an interesting character, but right after the events of Liberty Falls, what he does is he goes to Janus Towers. And Blanchard actually sees him do this on CCTV, and shortly afterwards, Janus Towers start to melt down, and Panos, who's working in cahoots with some kind of figure that's promised him a load of dark ether power, is the cause of all that chaos. So that's why the ether reactors are starting to shut down, but Richtofen goes on to say here,
Worse, I know what Sam really intends to do with the Sentinel artifact.
She said she wants to bring back Maxis.
No. Sam wants to be Maxis. To reconstitute and inhabit her body. She would have full control of the dark ether. Godlike power. She can still be stopped, but our window isn't long. So what's it going to be?
I trusted you once, and look where that got me.
I don't trust you at all. You're a machine. wearing Max's face. I'd die before I let that happen.
God damn it. Okay, okay. You got a plan?
Always.
And so this shot is them walking towards Janna's towers, and that's going to be the next zombies map. So our big upcoming questions to answer is, who is Panos working with? What exactly is he gonna do? And what is Richtofon's plan to both stop Panos and stop the Sam AI from becoming a godlike, omnipotent ruler of the dark ether and the real world? If you've enjoyed this storyline breakdown, please drop me a like. And if you want to experience this Easter egg for yourself, I've got a very in-depth Easter egg guide linked on screen right now, and I really recommend you click through and give it a watch because it'll make the Easter egg super straightforward for you. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.